Hello, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Douglas Johnson. I am a yoga teacher at the advanced 500-hour level. I'm also an ordained minister, musician, and kirtan artist. And today I wanted to talk about how the body makes it real. Before I get into that though, I need to thank the community. It is a community that makes these talks possible. So there are people who make a monthly contribution on a site called Patreon, and you can go over there and become a member of that community if you get value from the content that I create. And if you can also help out by liking, subscribing, sharing, commenting, and you can also make a one-time contribution if you like. Okay, so let's talk about how the body makes it real. The next time that you're in distress, whatever the reason, I'm going to invite you to pause for a moment and just feel your body and tell me if your body feels good or not. And I can almost guarantee it won't feel good. And this is a very important realization because usually in modern times, many people believe that they're upset because of what's going on out there. They're upset because this person said this. They're upset because this person is doing that. They're upset because of an idea or something that's going on. But really, where the suffering comes in is actually in our own bodies. And the interesting thing is our bodies will react to thoughts and ideas, whether they are true or not. So there's this great scene in the film The Matrix, the first one, which I'm a big fan of. The second and third one, they were entertaining, but I don't feel like they had any more depth than that, really. Whereas the first film, from a perspective of a spiritual teacher, it actually had a lot of things, intentional or not, it doesn't really matter. There are a lot of things that I as a teacher could point to as being relevant to our situation as human beings when it comes to spirituality in this life. So there are many little lessons in there that we can take from that film. You could say spiritual truths. There's one line in there that I wanted to highlight today where I believe it's the first time that Neo goes back into some form of the Matrix. And Morpheus is like teaching him lessons. And he comes out of this simulation, or the Matrix basically, and I think he's like bleeding out of the side of his mouth or something like that. And he has an exchange with Morpheus where, he's saying, well, it's a simulation or something like that. And Morpheus says, the mind makes it real. So in other words, if you die in the Matrix because your mind believes you're dead, you will actually die in the quote unquote real world. So I love that scene and that line, but my experience with it from a spiritual perspective is actually the opposite. The body makes it real. So in other words, if I believe a thought, it doesn't matter whether the thought is true or not. If someone calls me and says that someone I love has passed away, and I have no reason to doubt or disbelieve this, I will feel all kinds of things in my body. I will cry, I will despair, I'll have all sorts of thoughts that cascade, not only from the information that I got on the phone, but also just from what I feel in my body. The body and the mind, you could say, work in synergy with one another, okay? But it's really the body that causes us suffering. And so, in a very real sense, if I have a thought, and I've spoken about this in the past, but it's such an important point, I think it just needs to be driven home. One of my teachers likes to say that repetition is the mother of clarity, and I really believe this. So we need to repeat things. We need to hear them over and over again. They won't always land the first time. So the body makes it real. And I've used this example in the past. You might be able to go back and actually find a video where I use this exact example. So let's say that I tell you, hey, Mickey Mouse is really mad at you and he's coming to get you. Right, that could be a threatening statement if I didn't use Mickey Mouse. But because we know Mickey Mouse is a fictional character and he's a mouse, how threatened could we possibly feel? So instead of getting upset or scared or reacting to that, you'll probably laugh, right? You'll probably laugh because you're not believing the thought. And because you're not believing the thought, the body will not react in any kind of way that causes any kind of suffering. But let's say we both know someone named Anthony. And Anthony is a little unhinged, kind of violent, maybe a mixed martial artist, loves guns and weapons, a little bit of a kooky individual, violent individual. Let's say we both know this person. And then I tell you, hey, Anthony's really pissed at you and he's coming to get you. Because you might believe this thought, because Anthony's a real person and Anthony is someone who might come to get you, not like Mickey Mouse, whether that statement is true or not, because there's the possibility of belief, because you believe it, you will feel things in your body. Okay, and that feeling of fear, of dread, of being under threat will then cause further thinking, like what can I do, where should I go, all these kinds of thoughts, what's going to happen to me, and that will likely cascade into more feelings in the body. And I'm pointing this out because this is where a lot of our suffering comes from. It comes from this kind of loop that happens. We have a thought, we believe the thought, and then the body reacts because the body doesn't really know any different. The body's amazing. It has its own kind of wisdom, but it relies on the mind to sort of navigate certain things. And the mind, I gotta say, is it's easily fooled, especially in this day and age. There's a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of half-truths. There's a lot of different opinions. There's even things that maybe we can't say it's true or false. It's just an opinion. But there's a lot of opinions out there that might cause someone to feel really negative, really bad, really poorly, okay? So this is important to understand because if we want peace, if we want joy, if we want to be happy then for more than just kind of a fleeting moment of victory, if we want the sort of calm, abiding bliss that I think many teachers in the tradition have spoken about, then we need to see this mechanism at work. And we need to recognize that it's the body that's really convincing us that the thoughts are real. It's the body that's creating the suffering. So, for instance, if I have the thought, inflation's going through the roof, and I believe this thought, and again, I might have evidence for it, but it may not be affecting me at this very moment. But I believe that thought, I take that thought, I feel my body tighten up in fear, right? And my mind, as my body does that, my mind starts to spin and say, well, what are we gonna do? Maybe we need to get a second job. Maybe I can start cutting corners on, maybe I'll cancel my Netflix subscription, whatever it might be. And you see how that thought, whether it's true or not, it causes this chain reaction. And a lot of our thoughts are about the future. Okay, so I mean, inflation has already happened to a degree, but there could be more inflation, of course. And that's just an example, right? It's something that maybe you can relate to in this point in time. There's all sorts of things that we're scared about: our health, our relationships, what's going to happen in the future. The mind is always trying to anticipate the future. And we live in such a complex world, and there's so many interrelational dynamics, right? We don't really live in a world that is only affected by what's going on locally. There's things globally that affect us on a personal level. So it's really challenging because our mind, in a sense, wasn't really designed to deal with that. It wasn't really designed to be able to navigate these complexities. There's, the stock market, there's the bond market, there's currency markets, there's international relations and trade, there's, innumerable things. We work for companies that have global links and ties. There's political things going on. And how can one human mind really navigate all this? And yet, what you might find is when you turn on the news or you open up your social media and you get some information, your mind will very often try to deal with what it's being shown. So if it looks like, oh my God, inflation's coming, the mind feels like it's its job to try and deal with that. It's like, okay, well, what do we do? Now, for a lot of things, at least in my experience, and this goes beyond the current, situation. This is something that I've noticed throughout my life. I've noticed that I often will worry about things, fret over them, spend lots of mental energy on things, and then those things never actually come to pass, okay? I've also learned that very often we can only deal with the future when it's actually the present. There's a few things that we might be able to do, but what I notice is you just think of those things and then you do them, you take action. And then more worrying doesn't actually produce any results or any good. So if there is a situation, oh my God, inflation's coming, you have that thought, what can I do? I can get a second job, okay? That's what you do. Or you can think, well, I guess I'll wait to see what happens. And you might find it doesn't come, or you might find that when it comes, your situation has somehow shifted or changed, where a second job doesn't really make sense. And I say this because a lot of the people that work with me are very intelligent, which is a real gift. They're very sensitive and they're very intelligent, which again, these are both gifts. But this does usually lend to someone being anxious and worrying and trying to always plan into the future. And the temptation is to think, well, if I can just plan enough, if I can just think the right thought, then I'll feel better. But the point of today's talk is it's really in the body that we don't feel good. It's not necessarily the thought of a tariff that is making you feel, it's the way your body is reacting and responding to that thought. Now you might say, well, I can't help it. Every time I think about tariffs, I feel this way. But what I've learned is that that's where a lot of our work is. A lot of our work is learning to unwind these associations these triggers from thoughts that we have and the way they respond in our body. And when we do that, we can still use our thoughts, right? Okay, tariffs are coming, and we're actually more clear, because when the body gets triggered like that, we very often end up in some form of a fight or flight response. It tends to activate the sympathetic nervous system, sympathetic response. Those feelings in our body, they just don't feel very good. And as that happens, we tend to move more and more into the more primitive parts of the human brain, so the amygdala, which is a great part of their brain to be in if you're being attacked by a saber-toothed tiger or something like that, but not so great in navigating the modern world. Like I said, our brains just really weren't set up for this. So you would be better served by staying in a calm, relaxed state, even when trying to contemplate what you're going to do about a situation. Like, let's say again, inflation. You're worried about inflation. So worrying about inflation in a fearful, oh my God, this is so scary way, what am I going to do? You will have less creativity, you will have less objectivity, less clarity than if you think about that from, again, a calm space where your body is relaxed, okay? Where you aren't feeling triggered. So this, of course, applies to so many things. There's so many places in our life. I've noticed some days I wake up and I'm thinking how negative life is. I'm like seeing life in a negative way. And I'm just sort of accepting that as true. Like, wow, life is just tough, or it's not good, or I feel really terrible. And that's just it. I feel bad. And if I pause and I just go into my body, I notice that there's certain areas where I'm feeling a certain kind of tension. Again, very often this was triggered by a thought, by some stimulus. So maybe I read an article. Maybe I got a text from somebody. Maybe I had a thought about a situation. And then that sort of planted this heaviness in my body. And then I turn my attention elsewhere, but the heaviness remains. That's what's so interesting. And that heaviness is like putting on glasses, right? Like the sunglasses I have on now. They make everything seem different than they would if I took them off. And that's a lot of times what these triggers do to us. And it can be subtle enough that we don't really question it or look at it. So we're just sort of going about our business and we're like, yeah, I don't feel so great today. Today's not a good day, all this kind of stuff. Well, every day, honestly, is a gift. It really is. And to wake up and have a day where we don't recognize it as a gift, it's very understandable. This is probably how most of us go through most of our lives, but it really is a shame. And so noticing that it's the body, it's almost like an anchor, right? It's like pulling us down into this negative thought spiral because of how we're feeling. And again, we may not even be conscious we're feeling that in the body. It's sort of like it's like putting on glasses that color everything. So I'm looking around, everything looks negative because of this negative feeling I have in my body. So what I recommend and what I've started doing more and more is anytime I'm starting to see things through that negative light, I pause, I try and find the negative sensation in my body. I might find a thought that relates to it. And I've spoken a lot about this in the past. There's sort of a two-pronged approach to completely working through something. So I need to be willing to see that the thought, the fear, whatever it is, I don't know that it's actually true until it's actually happening. And oddly enough, sometimes when the worst happens, it's not what you thought it was. It's not that bad, or it's even not bad at all. It might actually end up in a positive situation. But regardless, I have to be willing to see, like, okay, I don't actually know until inflation hits and there's more inflation. We just have what we have now, right? And again, I'm just using that as an example because you may be able to relate with that. There's all kinds of things that we fear as human beings, not just inflation. So that's one part of it. Being willing to soften your beliefs, being willing to soften what you think you know, right? Being able to question that. This is very important. And this is, I think, one of the main cornerstones of being awake. If someone is not spiritually awake, they really have a hard time doing this. It might be impossible for them, in fact. They just tend to believe that whatever thoughts they have, whatever beliefs they have are right, they are correct, they shouldn't be questioned. So this is one half of it. And the other part is bringing attention, bringing awareness to the feelings. And the method I use comes from the tantric yoga tradition, which is welcoming the feelings, feeling them completely, allowing them completely. And usually you should get rid of your distractions, go somewhere quiet, lay down, get comfortable, relax, and just allow yourself to feel what's there. Now, I'm not saying what's there is going to go away immediately. It might. It may also shift. But some things that are deeper, that have more energy, they simply take longer to dissipate. But over time, what you are likely to find is that you're able to work through these things. And then you can reach that state that I was talking about earlier. Whether inflation comes or not, you're going to be better served by not feeling those intense negative sensations in your body. In other words, not suffering. You see, my reading or interpretation of a lot of these ancient teachings is that we can't control the world. We can't control whether inflation is coming or not. We can't control whether we get fired or not. We can't control whether we get divorced or not. We have influence, no doubt, but we're not in control of anything, right? Not even in control of my body. If people were in control of their bodies, they would never get cancer. They would never get sick. They would never have any kind of problem. They wouldn't get hangovers, right? No one's in control of anything. Yes, we can have influence over these things. I can eat healthy. I can eat poorly. I can get enough sleep. I cannot sleep. That's definitely going to influence my health. I don't have control over it, okay? So we don't really have control over anything. Try controlling your thoughts. Let me know how that goes. So we don't have control over anything. But suffering is something that we can deal with. And so the world is just going to do what it does. And in order for us to, in a sense, be one with it, to enjoy the play, right? The interplay of opposites, the tensions. It's so interesting, actually, right? It's like a movie on a very grand scale. What's going to happen next? So in order to enjoy that, we have to reduce or eliminate our suffering. And for me, that's what these teachings are really trying to show us. How do I reduce or eliminate my suffering so that I can enjoy the ride of living here and being a human and learn the lessons that I need to learn and see and experience what I need to see and experience. So I've talked about it before, but again, I really can't emphasize it enough. We have basically these two elements in the yoga tradition, Shiva and Shakti, right? The awareness and then what feels like objects or energy in awareness. These are essentially the same thing, energy, objects. Science tells us that all solid objects are ultimately also just energy. So everything we perceive with our senses, it's all just ultimately energy. That which is perceiving is awareness. And so these two, we have the thoughts and we have those feelings. So seeing through the thoughts, that the thoughts aren't necessarily true, not believing them. You could say that when awareness believes a thought, it essentially melds with it and identifies with it. So disidentifying from the thoughts, questioning them, not believing them completely, especially the painful ones. The not painful ones, in a sense, who cares? Enjoy. If I have a thought, what a lovely day, like who is that harming? That's not harming me or anyone else. But if I wake up and I'm like, this is terrible, then I'm hurting myself, and I'm also more likely to harm or hurt others. I might try and convince others it's terrible, and then if they believe me, they're going to start suffering. Or very often when humans feel terrible, they do terrible things. It's just in the nature of the human being. So being willing to question the thoughts and then being able to digest or work through the emotions, the negative emotions, the dark, heavy emotions that we feel. And this gets easier with time. At first, it may take a while before you even notice that it's happening. Again, some days I wake up just on the wrong side of the bed. I just start going down this spiral. So I can catch that, question, and then deal with the emotions directly. So again, directly, not by trying to solve it with another thought, which is what most people try and do. I feel this way, inflation's coming, let me go get another job and then I'll feel better, right? No, just feeling the feelings directly, welcoming them, and dissolving them through awareness. Awareness is like the sun, okay? And if I shine the sun where there is a shadow, then the light eliminates the shadow. Was the shadow ever really there? No, it was just basically an absence of light. And so when we bring the light of our awareness to the dark places within ourselves, we bring that light, we dissolve the darkness with the awareness. All right, everyone, as usual, my intention here is that this is helpful for you. If you have any questions, please reach out. And again, if you'd like to become a part of the community that helps create these talks, check out the links below. And you can also help by liking, subscribing, sharing, commenting. I also have links to a shop where a friend of mine and I have designed some merch. So if you want to get a shirt or a mug or a hat or something like that, we have some fun designs for you over there. All right, everyone, until next time, namaste. Have a beautiful day.